Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Middle Age Mamas. You guys, do you know? I know. 5, 4. Dun, 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 dun. This is like our 31st episode.
What? Is it?
Yep.
That's
Every time I upload an episode, I have to count back and I just look at Apple Podcasts and it says see all 29 or whatever, and so I just add one.
So then at 50 we have to do something. We have to have some balloons.
Yeah, we are trucking along and making our way. So everybody's here, Dawn with her pearls, Camila and Nikita.
Just in case.
Yeah, for
just
clutching
in case
purposes.
you have to do something I need to.
So I posted something recently. My daughter Abby, who was a Girl Scout when she was little, on roller skates, knocking door to door, asking people to buy her cookies. So I posted, if your kid is not on roller skates selling her cookies, I don't want them. I said, don't send me no links, because now, everybody, just the parents do all the work. They put it on social media. The kids are like 20 now.
So you're trying to say that if your child is not really doing the work,
I was halfway joking and being passive aggressive at the same time.
But that's what you meant, though, right?
Right.
With your dog on the leash with you.
Exactly, because even though their children still in Girl Scouts, because Abby is 15, it's like your senior year or whatever, and those moms are still sending links and basically selling the cookies for the kids. I mean, they do the boo thing, so they do get a piece of it, but I just think it's hilarious that parents take over the whole fundraising aspect of selling the cookies.
But do they tell them that, though? Because I know sometimes they'll say, make sure your kids are not going out. I don't know about Girl Scouts. My kids were never in it, but for other fundraisers, they'll say, make sure your kids are not going door to door by themselves. Like, do this, do that. Do you think that is the issue?
Abby never went by herself. We had a whole entourage. Abby was at the door. Grant and Christian were behind her, and she'd say, would you like to buy cookies? And then say, how much? Yes. Intimidated. And they would say, how much are they? And she'd be like, turn around. How much are they? or she would know the price of each box, but then if it was like 3 or 4 boxes, and then like, how much do I owe you? She'd turn around to her mathematician brothers, how much is it?
I want some cookies.
And they would counter change for her. It was really cute. But I say all that to say, now it's flipped, and parents basically send the links out and pressure you into buying cookies for their kids.
I never feel pressured to buy Girl Scout cookies. I'll buy some for Abby, but then I give them away. But like generally, I don't buy them. But what I do think is cute is when the mom and the daughter or whoever she's with is outside of the grocery store trying to pass cookies. They get them off fast.
And that's the boo thing. So you have to sign up like twice in the season to go out there and sell them in front of the grocery stores. So that's required for everybody.
And why is it called boo thing?
Because you create a booth.
Oh, booth! It sounds like you saying boo, like my boo.
Oh, my boo.
Yes. Like boo.
She forgot the TH.
Oh, did I?
Yeah.
I really said it like that?
Yeah.
Oh, this lemon drop is kind of fast.
Lemon drop.
It's hitting real fast right now. So, no, it's boo.
I got that too. The boo thing.
Yeah, I wasn't alone. I was like, what is that?
So, what are your thoughts on just fundraising in general? Because we get hit now that we have teenagers with sports. It's always some kind of crazy fundraiser going on. Do you guys donate to every email you get? How do you decide who to give money to?
I think I usually support kids and families that support my kids.
Oh, yeah. I
because
can see that.
We do it too.
Right.
And I'm guilty of sending out the emails. I'm guilty of, the newest thing that came out of the pandemic is, what's that popcorn?
The popcorn.
Good popcorn.
Oh, yeah.
Good popcorn.
It's not that great.
I think it's good.
You do?
I think it's certain ones.
It's good, but it's not $10 good.
I think it does taste good, but all of my friends, including my own kids, are participating in those fundraisers. And I know some of my friends are like, we doing this again, but it's no different than the candy. What's the candy company?
Yeah.
That every year.
Yeah.
And
they're getting skinnier and skinnier.
Yeah.
They used to be fat. Now they're like a little sliver.
What's it called? Finest chocolate.
Yeah, Finest chocolate.
Every year from school, you would do that. And so I know some of the irritation about why are we doing this again. That's what we always did. You find a good fundraiser, and what I hear about the good popcorn is that their return is really good.
The percentage you get back.
I was gonna say that I didn't feel that way because I feel like we sold so much and only got like, I don't know. It didn't seem like it matched up what we sold compared to what was donated to us.
It gives more than other companies.
Yeah, some companies are like 20%.
We ended up
is it over 50?
10,000 and we got 4,000.
That's still a lot. That's still a lot.
It didn't seem like a lot to me.
Yeah, their return.
But that was at like kind of like 40% or something like that.
Don't have me doing math.
Yeah, that's around 40%.
Right.
I didn't like it though, because when I looked at the numbers, like I guess just visually, I was like,
yeah, because you think in a fundraiser they should never get more than the people out there selling the product. I agree with you.
Yeah, I mean,
I think
as hard as you're peddling
20 or
that
30,
stuff,
yeah,
you know, and going back and forth, you know, sending the emails, and then you're literally begging people to buy this stuff for your kids.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? For whatever, the basketball team.
Yeah.
That's what we did ours for. And then, you know, there's a school, you know, I feel like it's a form of begging.
It is.
Not like, you know, it's just not a harsh form.
But there's so little involved. Like there's so little that we have to do for that popcorn. It's all by email.
Yeah,
they do the shipping. You know, it's not something where you're out on the corner. You're not
selling
peddling
stuff. Remember the old magazines? You have to sell the magazines
and
the wrapping paper and stuff like that.
I never did
that. I agree. It's not hard.
It's easy, but it's annoying because people are like, here we go again.
Yeah, that's the part I struggle with. Like sending my parents. I usually will say like, only send it to like 3 or 4 people because I don't want to keep asking every time a new sport fundraiser comes out.
Send it out. I don't support so much if somebody's just posting it on Facebook. I don't necessarily.
People just randomly do that?
Yes, that's what I'm saying. The Girl Scout cookies support my troop. And here's the link.
And there's a link.
Okay. I thought that this was going out to like people in your phone book, like your contacts.
Oh no, they'll just post it. I mean, I've done it. I've done it too. You just post it.
I only get them from like you.
Yeah.
Or my one of my other girlfriends, her daughters are in Girl Scouts. Yeah. I just get them from you and her.
If they send it directly to us, like if a kid, like somebody will say, hi, this is such and such's daughter.
Yeah.
You know, or if that parent is sending it directly to me. Or Martin too, like he came home with a big old bag of Girl Scout cookies. I don't know if he got it from a coworker's kid.
Yeah.
You know, I usually will support coworkers' kids. But I think even now, at certain jobs and companies, they don't even allow you to bring your kids' stuff. Yeah, that you can't do that anymore.
My job, some of the parents, they would set the little sign up sheet.
Which is nice though because right, and I agree because that gives you the option. And sometimes people crave cookie season because you want it. I used to drive all over the Lowe's before I did Girl Scouts looking for the cookies, so I get that. But it's just the constant asking.
But then also, I'm sorry for cutting you off. Go ahead.
No, it's okay. And I feel like people don't realize that there's always another fundraiser around the corner. And then you feel bad if you just did one fundraiser and then you get another email for another fundraiser and you're like, I just did another fundraiser. So you kind of have to support everybody equally.
I think with my job, we have been working together for so long, and all of it's a lot of us in there that have children. My coworkers. We don't even think about it.
We just support each other.
Yeah, we just support each other's kids because, I said, we've been working together for over 10, 15 years. So we just sign it up, even and give it away. You know what I'm saying?
Right, that's nice.
The fundraising issue that I have, or it's not really an issue, it's more difficult with PTA. It's so hard to get like parents to be a part of the PTA and then help to like do fundraising activities. Like I'm having that struggle right now at
parent involvement.
Parent involvement. And even when we set up something, the parents have to go and, like, for instance, if we are doing something with a pizza parlor and you have to go and purchase the pizza, and those funds come to the school. Yeah, just like the popcorn stuff.
Right.
But yeah, it's just so hard to get parents to do that, and then also just to even be involved in the PTA or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
It's difficult to get that kind of support or involvement.
I went to a meeting the other night. I went to the first meeting. Remember I was asking you if you were going?
Yeah, the PAT one?
The one with the counselors and the PTA, whatever they call it.
Okay.
I did attend, and my son was like, "Why are you going to that? Do not volunteer for anything. Do not sign up to do anything. Do not." And I said, "I am going to represent.
I think it's important.
I'm going to represent,
and for them to see you and they know your son, they know your kids. It's important.
Absolutely, and I need them to know that I am an involved parent.
Absolutely.
I need to be there also to represent the Black families.
Absolutely.
There were only 2 other Black families there, so I'm like, no, I'm gonna be there. I'm gonna represent, even though I had a million other things to do. I know it's important to show up and to let the school know that you are an active, concerned parent. So when things go down,
I was just about to say, because you never know when it's going to work in your son's favor.
Things go down, they know this is a parent who's
That's
here
one of the reasons why I'm in it
to help and so that you can make those connections and those relationships. And I want to see who's involved. I want to see who my child is interacting with. I spent 2 hours the other day talking with some parents, and I was able to say to them, because they were having concerns about their kids and they're so shy and they're so this. I said, they're completely different when they're in school. They are leaders. They are this. They know where to go to ask for help. I want to know who's advising my kid.
Yeah.
Because that was one thing parents were saying, like, kids will come home and they totally change what they want to do, where they want to go to school, what careers they're interested in. Yes, who's influencing my child? Who's sharing their knowledge with them? And this was a night where you were able to meet the counselors. Even though I'm a counselor myself, I already know what the graduation requirements are. I already know what you need to do to get in college.
But you don't know all of the parents.
I want to meet the counselors.
To see who's
I want to know who's talking to my child. And I want to know that they're knowledgeable. I want to know that they have every child's interest at heart, their best interest. So it's important. It's important for parents to show up. And I met a parent the other day who was a friend of my husband from 30 years ago. Oh, wow. So it's such a small world too, and to be able to make those connections, and I feel like it makes parents feel safe to know when I drop my kids off in the morning that they're in good hands. And that's important.
Yeah, and you're right, because as the kids get older, you do feel like, oh, I don't need to be at the school all the time. Yeah. When they were little, I volunteered. I was like the room mom. I was everything. And now that they've gotten older, I don't have to be at the school that often. I'm not as aware. I didn't even know that meeting was happening and our kids are at the same school. I saw the email but didn't fully read the email. So that's very encouraging, and it needs to be said. So thank you so much for that.
And that's interesting that you say that. I felt the opposite. I was doing the opposite. I wasn't at school when my son was little, but I'm there like now because I feel like he needs me there more now.
It's true though. Those, especially junior high. Junior high is good. So I agree. But just the daily going on campus and just walking around. I don't have to do that much. You only pretty much have to go when you want to go. It's not so much when they're little and you're there for every little thing. So I need to be more mindful of that. So moving on from fundraising, I was watching The View the other day.
Me too. I watched The View.
I used to love it, but I haven't watched it in a long time.
I love the hot topic part.
Yeah, I watch it. That's like my dumbed down news.
Dumbed down?
Because they cover most like political things. And they kind of, not dumb it down, but they just, they give you the information in a easier format. I'm really not saying it right. Easier. Yeah, they basically recap everything that's going on in a different way.
In a way that's simple to understand.
Exactly. So, dumb down.
Digest it easier. That's the better way.
I don't want to hear every news thing, but they do give you the highlights. Although it is is heavily Democratic. But anyway, so Sunny Hostin, one of the hosts, did her Find My Roots. And boy, oh boy, was she in for a surprise when she found out that she actually wasn't Puerto Rican. And, you know, she's like very Puerto Rican proud.
What?
Yeah, they dug really deep. And she, you know, she seemed pretty heartbroken at some of the news that she got.
Yeah.
She found out that her grandfather wasn't her maternal or actual biological grandfather. And she, of course, she found out a ton of great information of leaders and how her grandparents ended up in Puerto Rico, even though they weren't Puerto Rican, and the things that they achieved and all this stuff.
So she's not Puerto Rican, not
no,
a little bit?
No, she's from Spain.
Oh, wow.
Really?
Yeah, so,
wow.
And she's black. I think her father's from Jamaica or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So it got me thinking, I was like, I really don't like those random like ancestry, let's dig up stuff, let's figure out.
Why not?
Because I don't think that it changes who you are. You know, you've grown up with your parents and your values and morals and things that you've learned along the way. Why at 40 getting some information make you all of a sudden, it's not going to make you a different person. It doesn't. If you find out that your grandfather that you knew as a child wasn't actually your biological grandfather, how does that change your life?
I don't think it does.
I think it does in the area of when you're thinking about genetics and health issues.
But now you can get all
of
of that stuff from the doctor. You don't have to have your genetic parents give you their information. You get all of, you know, I could see in the 50s that could have been a thing, but now it's not where you need it for your health record.
Right. But was she feeling like something was missing?
No, I think she did it because, you know, a lot of the celebrities do it's interesting. It's interesting. And you find they dig so deep and they go back so far. You can find a lot of cool information.
Your celebrity relative.
Right. So for someone like that, I think it's a little different, but just the random person, like, I'm just curious about my DNA. How much, if you find out you have a dot of Irish in you, how is that changing your life?
I don't think for me, I don't think that it's a thing where you're like going to change like the way that you see things. I think it's just really interesting to know like where you come from and like your roots and like, you know, where your parents came from, why they do things a certain way, that you know, why they do things the way that they do.
But I think that the stories that we've been told and handed down from generation to generation are either done on purpose or might have been done to protect you. If you found out your dad wasn't your dad because your dad was some crazy person and then this wonderful man adopted you and that's your father, I think that those things need to just stay where they were supposed to stay.
So then you would rather not hear about
I just I don't think that it doesn't balance out.
So then you wouldn't tell if the situation was where your dad wasn't your dad. You wouldn't want your mother to tell you. You rather just go on living life without knowing that that's not your biological father.
If he was a great dad the entire time, it doesn't change how I grew up, how I was raised, and then finding out some random dude that I never met who is a stranger to me was my father. That's not. That's just making a mess of things. I don't think that the reward pays. I just don't think that it's equal.
Because what if the person is alive and wants to find you and tell you some information like some sisters that
well, that's different though. If the person found, like my mother, for example, she's adopted. So if her biological father found her and wanted to connect with her, that's different than her. She knows she's adopted, so her doing a DNA thing, it would be different. It would be a bunch of secrets. If it wasn't that way and she just did a random DNA test with her biological parents, then I don't think digging up certain things is worth the mess of it. That's just my opinion. And maybe because I don't have a bunch of...
Not necessarily a mess.
Right.
But it's a lot of times it is.
A whole bunch of beautiful things.
That's true, but you never see in the commercials, find out your grandmama was a hoe. Find out that the milkman. Why isn't that in the commercial?
Why couldn't she be a woman of industry? Like, why couldn't she like be a real estate person?
Then why wouldn't she have told if that was the case?
I don't
Yeah.
Did she?
I think that people find out a lot of crazy stuff with this, and it's not always a love story of I found my long lost.
I think it's how you receive it.
Yeah, I think even if your dad is like some crazy person, I want to know, because when my kids start acting that way, I need somebody to blame. I need to be like, that's your daddy that you didn't know about. That's where this is coming from.
That's funny.
I totally feel like, and even who's the other celebrity recently that found out her parents were not her parents?
And that's
Kerry
another
Washington.
one. I do not, that one really got under my skin, because that man seemed like he was a beautiful father to her.
But he still is.
But the way she handled it, it didn't need to be all out in everybody.
I thought she handled it in a beautiful way. I thought the way the public reacted to it was like,
I don't think she was negative with it.
No, she just acted like it was like, I found the secret, and like, instead of saying that she was raised by a wonderful man and this is why they didn't tell her. I don't think it was the public's business, basically. It didn't have to be in the book.
I thought she handled it in a nice way, but I think the way the public reacted to it, the public put a negative spin on it. I thought, they because they started saying, well, your parents lied to you your whole life. This is all a sham and da-da-da-da.
But why did it have to be in her book?
They made it very ugly because it's her life. It's her memory. She's trying to be vulnerable and honest and authentic, and this is something that she's sharing because she's sharing her life. Yeah. And I just think about if we talk about secrets and different things, I'm imagining that's where we're going with this. There are certain things that I feel for children, it's not necessary for them to know when they are children, unless they are feeling that they are not a part of the family. And they're wanting, and they're struggling with their identity, and they're wanting to understand why they feel so out of place. But there are things that families keep from one another because it's going to be hurtful, because it's going to be harmful. But some of that stuff is just, I'm embarrassed. Yeah. Grandma was a hoe. I don't want everybody to know, because I want to act like she was this prim and proper, pearl wearing, So I think that's different. There are family secrets in my family that we discovered. And when I found out some of those things, I feel like if there are other children that are out there that are your siblings, like I had a cousin, and this wasn't a secret or anything, but when I went to undergrad, I had a cousin from Florida that I didn't know. This guy was dating my roommate. Luckily, he wasn't my type, or I wasn't his type, but...
Was your brother?
He was my cousin.
Oh.
He was my cousin. I do have a brother out there that I've never met, but
really?
that was a family secret. But this cousin, I later find out, like my mom was talking to her aunt, and she said, "Oh, Dawn is at such and such," and then the aunt is like, "Oh, well, such and such is there, her cousin," and this was a guy that I had been hanging out with, who's in my dorm practically every day.
Oh, and you didn't know?
Because he was dating my roommate, and he was my cousin. But what if I was dating my cousin? And
wait, why didn't you know he was your cousin?
I just didn't know. We hadn't.
Oh, it was like a cousin?
Yeah, he was my second cousin. It wasn't a secret, but I'm saying
it was just a coincidence.
It was just a coincidence. But there are people out there that could be dating their sibling, and they don't even know. So I think secrets like that, those can be detrimental. But there was something that was recently revealed to me by someone very close to me in my family that I don't think very many of us know. And it was so hurtful, and it was so painful. And whenever I think about it today, it makes me very upset. But I understand why.
It was painful because you guys did not know about it?
It was just painful because it was something very traumatic that happened to this person. And so it just hurt me knowing that someone that I love so much was experiencing all of this pain and suffering in silence. And we weren't able to come around this person and love and help them to heal because we didn't know. And so I think what happens to me, as someone who is an empath, that I feel very strongly for other people, when I do hear about those family secrets, it was something else that I had learned a very long time ago about my mom that also hurt me so deeply, to know that people are experiencing these very traumatic things. And then now I take on this trauma, secondhand trauma.
But isn't that a good reason why it doesn't need to go throughout like a whole family?
Absolutely. That's the thing. But what happens is, when we have these secrets, typically that one person or two people are holding on to these secrets, feeling as though they're protecting the family. And that person, I don't know that person is able to fully heal. You see these people that are walking around, and we're in LA, and we have an awful problem with the unhoused, right? There are all of these people that are on the street dealing with addiction, dealing with mental illness. Imagine how many of those people suffered major traumatic issues. You don't just end up on the street for any reason. I know we threaten the kids and say, if you don't do your homework, and we driving by those tents, we like, you want to live in that tent? That's not why that happens. It's not just because it's so expensive to live in LA.
Yeah, you're right.
These people are suffering with something. And can we come together as communities and as families and find ways to stop hiding things and stop attaching these stigmas to things and allow people to heal? And I think that's the issue, because eventually whatever happened in the dark is going to come to light.
I think it depends on what it is.
Absolutely,
honestly, because some things you can heal with a couple, your parents or a sister or a brother, and
therapy,
with therapy, and it doesn't have to be told to cousins and things like that, unless it's like a pedophile in the family. Then everybody does need to know.
Absolutely.
And they need to be put on alert that this person did that. That's something that should never be hidden under any circumstance. And there are so many times that people just brush that under the rug because they don't want the family to look bad. They don't want to tarnish, and that person needs help. If it's like a 10-year-old that has molested a 4-year-old, but like a 10-year-old that molested a 4-year-old, and they don't want the family to know,
and that 10-year-old has been molested.
Exactly. So it needs to be told just across the board.
Absolutely.
But I don't know everybody's business, and if they haven't told me personally, I don't want to hear it secondhand. I feel that people's privacy is their privacy. If they want to share it, then they share it.
It's not for everybody, but I even think about, on a lighter note, my daughter.
I wasn't able to share that for you.
Okay, Siri.
Thank you, Siri.
Siri trying to get
on a lighter note, my daughter became friends with a lot of students who were international exchange students. And she was so impressed about how they knew so much about their heritage, their culture. This is where I come from. This is our language. This is our food. And so I feel like for African Americans, especially, I can see how traumatic that was for Sunny. We already don't know where we come from. And so my daughter was struggling with that, trying to figure out, where do we come from? Because her friends will ask, well, where are you from? And so she started talking to me about my grandfather, who I only met a couple times, my grandfather who's Panamanian, my mom's dad. And she said, well, can I say that I'm Afro-Latina? She was really wanting to find
an identity,
something to identify with. And I said, absolutely. That is part of your culture. That is part of your heritage. But she was wanting that. And so because of that experience, I said our next family trip is we're going to go to Panama.
Oh, that's awesome.
So that we can have a chance to experience our culture. My grandparents got divorced when my mom was very young. And again, she was raised by a wonderful stepfather. She had a beautiful experience with him, but she did not have any of that piece from her Panamanian side. Even their name, when our family came from Panama, they were so concerned about fitting in with American culture that they even changed their name. They changed their name. The name was Carlos, and they changed it to Charles.
Oh, interesting. Now, things like that is interesting.
Absolutely.
I'm laughing because as you were saying that, I'm like, I just tell my kids we blackity black. We're black. Or William
Happy Black History.
Exactly.
Month.
William is very into, blackness and talking about black inventors and being proud of who we are as people. And what we've told them, especially during Black History Month when it's always about slavery and the struggle.
And,
he told them a couple of years ago, how they always in class, if it's something about slavery, then the kids turn around and look at your kids.
Oh my goodness.
So he was like, be proud of that, because the slaves that got selected were like the best of the best.
Absolutely.
The best of the best. The slaves that got on the ship, they were still the best of the best. A lot of them didn't even make it. They didn't make it.
Yes.
So you're still talking about the best of the best of the best.
Absolutely.
Then they came over here. Then still the best of the best built this country.
Yeah,
so we've taught them to be proud of, even though we don't know, what tribe, and I do think that that's cool to find out, your tribal history, although I don't think it's going to change your life. It's interesting. But we do talk to them about being just proud about, our history.
But you never know, it could change your outlook, like for your future. Like if you find out like your lineage and where you come from and the type of people that you come from, it could change your outlook for your future. It could motivate you to do more, be a better student, be a better this, and be a better that. Or I want to be an inventor, like, I don't know, my great
Gary Morgan was the inventor. He invented the traffic
slave
light.
so and so, whatever. It's not slave because I don't know if it was invention, but you just you never know how it could motivate you for your future.
Yeah, because I have seen when the celebrities do it and they'll say, "Oh, this person was that," and they're like, "Oh, this is where that came from."
Yeah.
So I can see that happening.
Absolutely.
I just think that the stories that I've been given for me is enough. Although, talking about my mom being adopted, she didn't find out until she was 30. So adoption.
So how did she feel about that?
But adoption, I think, is different. It should be an open conversation if you adopt a child. They should know it's such a beautiful story to be chosen to come into a family. It's a huge process. You have to go through so much to adopt a child. I don't think that there's any shame whatsoever.
So they didn't why did they wait?
Because her mother was very prideful and did not want to say that wasn't her child, and she couldn't have her own children. And back in the 50s, it was a thing. It wasn't like it is now. If you have a hard time having children, you can talk to people about it. There's other ways to do it. So in the 50s, it was her pride that prevented her from telling her. And I think she just told her in an argument, so that made it even more hurtful.
Bad.
Yeah. So, but then a lot of things made sense. Yeah. But now, going back to what you were saying about children, do you find it necessary to tell your kids, even if it's not something so deep, secrets about the family?
There are a few things that I will share that I wouldn't say were necessarily secrets, but maybe my children might ask certain things. They may ask, like my dad started acting very different. I'm sure it was, because of age and just life. And my kids said, is Papa acting this way because he was in Vietnam? Did he get hurt? Did something happen to his head when he was in Vietnam? And so we were able to have that conversation. So I guess it just depends. It depends on what it is. If they ask, but there aren't a whole lot of things that I've, like some of the things that I shared earlier about family members that I know that experienced trauma. I haven't shared any of that stuff with my kids.
Right.
It's not something that I feel like they need to know.
Right.
But little things I've shared with them, and I think if it's something that's going to affect them in the future,
right,
and that it's necessary for them to know, medical stuff, you know, but otherwise I haven't, or personal things about me, I haven't shared a lot of stuff. But if it were to come up,
right,
if they were to ask me,
right,
if the time is right, yes, yes.
A therapist once said, if it's going to benefit them, basically. So if your child is drinking underage, and then you share a story of something that happened to you to help them get through that, you know, decision that you made, or choice that you made to help guide them to the right path. But you don't want to just start off saying, "Oh, I was a drunk in my in my teens." But if it gets to a point where you need to share the information, give that information out. It's something interesting happened. I think last year I was at my mother-in-law's house, and Guy and Abby were triplets, and I never told them prior that they were triplets. It just wasn't something that I felt. I just didn't want them to be confused, or they were always little, and it was such.
Guy and Abby were?
Yeah, I remember it was 3.
I thought it was Christian and Grant.
No, it was Guy and Abby. So the third one vanished early on. It was like 8 weeks, so it wasn't super traumatic. After it happened, we just got excited about Guy and Abby, and we just kept moving on, and we kind of just put it in the past, and that's what it was. And as they have grown up, I was like, should I tell them? Should I not tell them? So my mother-in-law, I don't know what we were talking about, but she brought it up. And William and I,
in front of the kids.
Yeah, and she probably just assumed that they knew.
Right.
I think she just said it off the cuff, like, remember, and something. And William and I looked at each other like, oh. And then we just changed the subject. So on the car ride home, we said, oh, just so you know, when I was pregnant with you, there was a third, and one vanished. And then they had a few questions, and then that was it. And they were just like, was it a girl? Was it a boy? And I was like, I don't know. Right. Yeah, and then one of them said, why didn't you tell us? And I was like, it just wasn't something that I thought would benefit you, or I just, you know, when the time is right. So
I think sometimes we can make things that aren't a big deal
a big deal.
A big deal.
That is so true.
But you know, we had the woman that I consider to be my grandmother was not my biological grandmother. She wasn't my mother's birth mother. And I remember, I don't remember who told me. I was maybe 10 years old. I don't remember who told me that she was not my biological grandmother, and I didn't know.
Because you always just called her grandma, and you always the cousins and
from when I was 2 weeks old, she was helping my mother with me at home, you know?
Yeah.
So, I mean, of course I didn't know it then, but I knew nothing different.
Yeah.
But I remember one evening, and so, of course, we were very close. Thanksgiving, just every holiday we were with her. Mother's Day, we spent all these holidays. Her daughters, my aunties, that's who they were to me. And so I remember one evening, after our long stint at church at Mount Zion, we were at church very late all the time. But we were riding home from church, and I asked my grandmother. I said, "You're not my real grandmother, are you?" And she said, she hesitated, and she said, "No, I'm not." And we were right in front of her house, about to drop her off. And then, the conversation was over. She got out of the car.
But what made you say that?
Right? Did something?
I wanted to know. I wanted to know, because
maybe
I was
you were
like,
just looking at her and you were like,
well, no, it must have been one of my cousins who were not my biological cousin that told me that. But I specifically asked her that. And I think that when I asked her that, it made her feel bad. Because I opened up some kind of a can of worms that probably or a wound that didn't necessarily need to be open. I don't know how my mother felt about it, because
it was only the two of you in the car. Your mom was in the car too.
my brother William was in the car. We were coming home from church in the evening. It was my brother William, myself. Darren was not born yet. My grandmother and my mother was driving, and because we drove. That's how we went to church every Sunday.
But it was never a secret, right? The way your mom was embraced was like a loving thing. It was not a
secret, but it was not out because people at church didn't even know. And people at church would make snide remarks to my mom sometimes and say, "Oh, that's not your real mother," or say, just allude.
Was she adopted?
She wasn't adopted.
She was embraced by the family.
Right. My mother's biological mother died when she was very young, when she was 7.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And so my grandfather, my mother's biological father, raised all of them, right? And she has 2 other siblings from her biological parents. And then my grandmother that I grew up knowing as my grandmother, it was 10 of them. My mother made 11. And so she considered my mother like her child.
Because one of the daughters was friends with
my mother's best friend.
So she embraced her as her child.
And
that was like at 17, 18, right? It wasn't
younger than that.
So she didn't marry your grandfather or anything like that.
Not at all. They lived, Mabel Foster
like a godmother.
lived down the street from my parents, from my biological
she
grandparents.
Embraced her as her daughter.
Yes. Her daughter, my Aunt Brenda, was my mother's best friend.
But like you said, sometimes people make things that aren't a big deal a big deal.
Right.
It could have been one of those things.
I mean, I don't know, but we were never told, and it just kind of came out like that. I don't even know if my brother was even paying attention to me. But I was aware, and for whatever reason, I wanted to know. But I don't know why they didn't just tell us.
And they didn't say at that point they didn't say, "Oh, your biological grandmother passed away."
What was said at that moment in that car? No, I'm not. And that was the end of the conversation.
Wow.
It never picked up again.
Until how old?
It never.
Well, at some point you found out that your mom had a mother.
Oh. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I found out.
Like I said.
Yeah, I mean, no, I thought you were talking about that conversation in the car.
I just found out right now.
No.
My ancestry DNA. My ancestry.
No. Come on.
I did my ancestry yesterday.
The conversation that we had in the car that even in the 80s ended, and that was it. We never picked it up again, and
until
because kids.
Well, I don't even remember.
Just all of a sudden,
right.
I don't even remember when we had a conversation, but it was when I was much older when she told me about
the whole story.
Yeah, her mother, and even how she passed away, or
what your mother told you that story.
Correct.
And that's just such a beautiful thing that she embraced her as her child.
Yeah, it was because I had some wonderful aunties and uncles. Some of them, my uncles are passed away, but she had a wonderful family. My grandmother was a wonderful grandmother. I mean,
excellent.
If no one told me anything, I would have never thought anything different. I never second guessed the way that they look because they look totally different. We don't look like them at all. But
But the love she showed you guys was
it was like
and that goes to my point. That's what really matters.
But that's what always happens. What I was saying, somebody's going to say something. That's going to then make you question.
But I'm talking about generations down the line.
Uncomfortable.
Yeah, if you've passed the grandparents, digging up.
But that's what happened.
To make sense.
That's what happened.
Like, that's why we don't look alike.
Right. That's the same thing.
That's why her name is this and our name is that.
Yeah. The same thing happened. It was like a cousin told me when I said I had a brother that I still haven't met. He's older than any of us. But one day I was in Florida. I was with the cousins, and this woman. It was a very small, tight-knit community where my dad's family lived, and everybody would congregate at grandma's house, at his mom's house, and it was like an open door. You just come in, and one day this woman either came over or she drove by, and one of the cousins said, "That was supposed to be your mama." I'm a kid. I was probably.
Why would you be telling me that?
I was probably in third grade. I had no idea what that meant.
That.
Yeah.
I had no.
That's the same thing that happened to my mother. Her cousins would always make remarks, but she never put it together.
And I didn't put that together.
She just thought they were jealous.
Absolutely, that's what I thought too.
They just jealous.
They just jealous because anytime we would come over, everybody would say, "Who pretty children is this?"
Yeah.
You know, so I didn't, in my little kid mind, I had no idea what that meant. I was like, what are you talking about? I just thought she meant this was somebody that my dad dated that maybe the family liked better than my mom, and they would have preferred that my dad had married this woman.
Yeah, but it was a bigger secret.
But in actuality, my dad had a child with that woman. And it was a secret for a very, very long time that child, that my dad would not have a relationship with that child. And so he was needing to keep the secret because that's what they all promised, because that woman didn't raise it and she had the sister raise it, and then it was this whole big thing. And it didn't come to, I think I was probably married when my dad finally somehow connected, not with the son, but connected with his daughter, connected with his granddaughter. And the granddaughter came to visit us in California. She was a beautiful little girl. She was probably about 10. And by then I was 30, I think. And the little girl,
you were like, yeah, you one of us.
The little girl looked
You're pretty.
just like me. She did. She looked just like me. And
so you met the grandchild, but not the dad?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
I met his daughter, but not the connection, that the relationship that my dad started with his granddaughter was not through the son. It was through her mother. So he was no longer together with the mother, and the mother had a relationship with my dad's family. And so from that, that was how they connected. But she was a beautiful little girl, and you know, those are the things that's the type of stuff that happens. So when that cousin was like, that should have been your mama, I didn't know that meant.
Yeah.
You know, because I'm sure the family, the adults were talking around her. They knew about this kid. They knew, you know, the whole story.
Yeah.
And so it didn't come to me until very late. But I felt sorry for that young man. I felt sorry that, not so much that he missed out on a relationship with my dad, but that he missed out on, he has 7 other siblings. You know, my parents have 5 together, and then my dad remarried and had 2 more. So he has 7 siblings out in the world, you know, that he's never met, and that we never met him. And so I think that's the part where, when those things happen, that maybe you're missing, you're feeling like something is missing. And he was adopted within his family, so he was raised around the actual mom and everything, not knowing that she was his mom, thinking that she was his aunt.
Wow.
You know? Yeah, he was raised by, her sister adopted him.
Wow.
Her sister
yeah, see, I think those are messed up. I don't like that either.
Yeah, her sister raised him because she was older and she was married and she didn't have kids. So she raised him, but then his actual mother, who he did not know was his mother, was around in his life all the time. And he's just
I think that messes people up like that, when you're adopted within the family like that.
That's
pick someone across country.
That secret is out there, and when he found out, it did hurt him, and he didn't want to be bothered with anybody.
Exactly.
Like, you've lied to me my entire life.
Yeah.
You know,
I think it's just cleaner if you could just let go and adopt a child out somewhere across country, and it's not, in the family, because that sounds just so hurtful and painful.
That's painful. But wasn't that generation during that time called the silent generation as well? And they never talked about anything because of the shame of being an unwed mother or having sex outside of marriage, you know.
Absolutely.
Oh, it was a tough time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think the moral of the story is spill the beans before the cousins come.
Tell
before the cousins come, you gotta spill the beans.
Because the older the secret gets,
somebody's
the
gonna
cousins
say,
are going to
the
tell.
older the secret gets, the more hurtful, the more painful it is when it comes out, because so much time will have passed.
Right.
And you sitting up there chummy with your mama when it's really, when you thought that was your cousin or your auntie, and it's really your mom.
Yeah. On that note, thank you guys so much for listening.
Happy Black History
Happy Black History. Go do your ancestry if you want to, but don't say I didn't warn you. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Bye, guys.
Bye.